Hi guys, I'm Mama Bertameni. I am mom to 14 children. 12 of my children are still at home. And I am here with my good friend Sarah from Herding Little Cows to the Glory of God. And we're going to go over some questions. So Sarah, how big is your family? And
we have 7 kids at home. We have 2 children that have already moved out of the house. Plus we've had some losses along the way as miscarriages or stillborn. And so we have our kids we have a 26-year-old out of the house, a 20-year-old who just got married out of the house, and then at home we have a 16, a 13, an 11, an 8, a 5, no, a 6, just turned 6, about to turn 4, and then about to turn 2. That's our family.
It's kind of funny because earlier we were talking about like the ages of our children, and everyone's like, some kids are going to have birthdays, so we're going to have kids that are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up till 10. Nobody has a 10-year-old, but we have 2 11-year-olds. And then 2 13-year-olds, like when our kids all get together.
And 2 16-year-olds.
And 2 16-year-olds.
But
yes.
we like missed those middle ages.
Yeah. Apparently we missed 10, 12, and 14.
We didn't know each other at that time, so we didn't know we had to like fill in the gaps.
I know. So we need one more mama that has kids those ages to fill in our gaps.
That's right.
Okay, so we thought what we would do is get together, and there's so many things that as a mom of having so many children that I wish that I knew when I was a mom to just like 3 or 4 children, because there's so many helpful tips that we wish we knew along the way. So we thought that we'd go over some of those tips with you guys. So first is just like, we're going to go through like generally what we would think were good tips. And then we're going to go through different areas of the home, like in the kitchen, organization, clothing, parenting, marriage, all those things. We'll do those like separately. So first, what do you think one of the best tips you could give somebody would be?
Remembering that your relationships should be God first, which I think Christians know as a rule but don't always put into practice, but then husband second, because as a mom with lots of little kids, it's very easy to push your husband's needs to the back. And I mean, when I'm dealing with a blowout poopy diaper, my husband has to fend for himself. I'm not saying that. But it can be very easy to give everything all day long to the children and then be totally spent and not have any time for your husband at the end of the day. So that would be, I wish I had thought about that more, because when we first got married, we had my stepson came into the marriage. Mm-hmm. So we had a 6-year-old immediately living in the house. And then I got pregnant just a few months later. And then my husband was put on disability just a few months later. So we had a really busy first year. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like I was always taking care of people and taking care of the needs of the household, and wasn't giving enough attention to our relationship. Even though we have a really good relationship and I've never felt like it was lacking, I wish we still would have put more time into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine's actually similar as that. So, putting God first, and a big thing for me was technology was starting to come into play a little bit, and I would watch what other moms were doing or what other families were doing, and I would compare myself to them. So I wanted to putting God first, but also using the Bible as my guideline instead of what other Christian people might be doing, because Christians are still sinners, right? Like, we're still all sinners. Like, people make mistakes, and and somebody who's doing a really good job might be doing a really good job for their family, but it might not be like a biblically good job, where I wish that I put like what the foundations that were taught in God's word first before I looked to like other Christian moms or whatever.
I think also going along with that, I just had a conversation with a friend the other day, and just talking about why is that biblically modeled mom doing that? Mm-hmm. And do I have the same convictions she has? Mm-hmm. Because I don't want to do it because you do it. I want to do it because God's words tells me to do it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because it's very easy to just be like, oh, well, if I dress like Nisha and I clean like Nisha, then my house is going to be like Nisha's. And it's not, because it's about my heart towards God and my heart towards my family, not Nisha's heart for her family, me pretending to do that.
Yeah. And you guys might see us a little bit like similarly, just like maybe the way that we dressed or the way that we do things, but we're really like 2 different people, and we have such unique needs in each of our households. And it's nice that we're able to like bounce things off of each other, but we're really unique people, and we have to do things. Her husband has a disability. Mine does in a way more like a learning disability, and just dealing with those things and being able to like accommodate our husbands in those things,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and because you have a homestead and all the stuff that goes with that, it looks totally different than what my daily life looks like, because I would actually be spending more and getting lesser quality stuff and everything if I was trying to do the canning and things that you're doing, because you're able to grow your own food and do those things. But
Yeah.
where we live, and because of our circumstances, we can't raise, like where we live, we can't raise meat. And with our circumstances, it's really hard to do a ton of gardening. We do gardening, but not a lot of preserving for the whole year like you do. And so I could feel like a failure because I'm not doing what she does, even though I think it's amazing. But that's not where God's put me right now. And so
Yeah.
that was kind of my other overview thing, was being content with what God has given you right now.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to see another mom and be like, well, if I could just raise animals, I could do so much more for my family. Or if I
Yeah.
could just take my family on vacation, it would be so much better for my family. Instead of just saying, this is what God's given me right now. I need to use the resources he's given me and use it to the best way I can to glorify God, not trying to be like everybody else and trying to mold
Yeah.
my family into something.
Yeah, I think that was like the hardest thing for me. Like, is just comparing myself, or even comparing like my house itself. Like, if I would go on to, even when Facebook got started, it was like I would see like these beautiful homes, and it's like, my house isn't this beautiful home, but yet it is, because it's the house that God gave me, and it allows me to keep my home. And I don't need to have all white walls. I don't need to have everything perfect, because that's the way like our household works, you know. And it's okay that my house looks different, and it's okay that my kids are involved in so many different like handicrafts and that type of stuff, that stuff's going to be out sometimes because they're working on it. And it's okay that like my bathroom is not completely clean. I literally like painted the bottom halves of my wall brown so that my kids, who are little farm kids, like would run their hands all over the place. So I decided to paint it brown so I wouldn't have to scrub it all day. That's my little tip and trick. Okay.
But she also, with the limited house you have, however you're saying about it, will occasionally host families of 9 in her house. So.
But I think like that's our heart, right? Like,
Yeah.
I would much rather like it. I'd much rather it be like that. And years ago, I used to be so concerned about my house that I think maybe I missed opportunities to be able to have people in my home, because I was worried of what they were going to think of my house, because it wasn't perfect all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, and yeah, it's really important to be able to. Hospitality is very much talked about in the Bible. It's very much something we're commanded to do. And we can get very much stuck on, this isn't perfect. I
Yeah.
didn't make the perfect meal. I have a funny story about, I had people over one time, and I cook. Like, I know how to cook.
Yeah, you do.
I decided to cook 2 chickens. I put them in the oven. I checked them shortly before supper. Neither one was done. They were still pink in the middle. So I took one out, threw it in my Instant Pot, left the other one in the oven. An hour later, still neither were cooked. I have no idea. God did not want us to have chicken that night. So we went and had the meal with no chicken. But sorry, Ben and Rachel, we got no chicken that night. But I really do know how to cook. My chicken usually cooks, less than an hour in the crock in the Instant Pot.
sure.
Should work, but no, it didn't.
Okay, that was God's plan. Okay, so what things in the kitchen do you think has helped you out the most? Skills that you wish you knew when you were...
Wish I knew when I was younger.
Yeah.
So I moved in with, I got married, moved in with Mark, and didn't know much of anything to do in the kitchen. My parents both
Me
knew how to cook. But my parents, we lived well off. We weren't rich by any means, but we could go to the store and be like, hey, tacos sound good. Let's get the ingredients. Mark and I got married, and I was like, I have $36. And mac and cheese went up in price, so we have to reconfigure what we're doing because I just couldn't afford it. And so I would say I wish I had spent the time. Yes, we had a 6-year-old, but he was in school at the time. I wish I had spent that time teaching myself kitchen skills.
Yeah.
That's why I'm teaching my girls now. But as someone who, if you don't have that, take the time while you have less children or no children to teach yourself kitchen skills.
Yes. Yes, for sure. I remember actually in the beginning of our marriage, this is kind of funny. My husband and I were married and we weren't living here. We were living near his friends, and his friend had recently gotten married, probably 3 years before us, and he had gone over to work at this guy's farm, and he went over there, and we were like newly married, and I was trying to figure out anything, right? You know, like let's not have chicken patties that are like pre-bought chicken patties. And or frozen lasagna, that was like my good meal, right? And so I was trying to figure all these things out, and he came home and he was raving about this husband's wife's bread, and I was like, I felt like jealous, like he almost like cheated on me because somebody else could cook bread and I couldn't cook bread. And I'm like, I am gonna learn how to cook bread. And to this day, my husband loves bread. Now we're not we're not eating gluten, or we're trying to go back to like non-gluten. So we're trying to find out. We have one recipe that works okay, but I want to find like a perfect gluten-free bread recipe. But
So if you know a perfect gluten-free free bread recipe, put it down here.
Yeah, for sure. Put it down there, especially if it's just like pure grains rather than using gluten-free flour. I'm trying to like move away from gluten-free flour into like a grain itself. Okay, so the things that I actually wrote down, you just have to be thinking of that. I wrote freezer meals. Hi. I wrote down freezer meals and then using an Instapot or a crock pot. I wish I knew how to, even if I didn't like bulk cook, like once a month cooking, I wish that I knew back then if I was making something to maybe make 2 of it and put 1 of those in the freezer. It wouldn't have to be like a huge day, but if I was just making like, say I was making goulash, I could have easily like taken that same goulash and put cheese over it and like thrown it in the freezer, and it would have been a good meal. Do you want to come sit with me? This is the paper. Do you want to hold my list? Anyone want to guess what she had for snack? I bet it was something chocolate. Do you have any more in the kitchen, or do you want to move to organization?
No, another in the kitchen. It kind of goes along with yours. My husband is not a huge fan of freezer meals. We do freezer meals sometimes because they're convenient for me, but that's not his preferred way. But I try to still do more meal prep than the meal I'm cooking for. So if I'm making beans, like dried beans, make enough for a second meal. Or if I'm cooking up, because like with a big family, I very rarely buy like the pound of burger unless it's like really cheap. But usually you get the family pack because that's the cheaper one. So I'll cook the whole thing up at one time, even if we're only going to use half of it, so that I can use the rest for another meal. So even without the freezer cooking, just thinking of what's ahead in my week, getting things prepped for it.
That's really good. I know too, there was a season, or sometimes there still is a season in my life that I might cook something like chickens or something on one day, and then the next day I might make like chicken soup, or I might make like different chicken meals out of like the chicken soup or whatever. I never knew that skill before as far as like cooking one thing and then making it into something else. I think another thing that is key is eating your leftovers, even if you have to like recreate it. I know some people will say like that they don't like leftovers, and it's okay like not to like leftovers, but if you can even take those leftovers and recreate them into another meal, then that can be a blessing to your family.
Yeah, for our family, because my husband's not a big fan of the freezer meals, we tend to make like tacos and keep the stuff separate instead of making a bake. So I'm not having a leftover bake. We have leftover pieces to put together, if that makes sense. So we can have meat, and we can have beans, and we can make a different casserole. This is what happens when you have 2 moms with bunches of kids. They wander their way in here. Mine's over there on the couch. She'll be over here in a minute. But you have the pieces. So like if we make pasta, I'll keep the pasta and the sauce separate, and then I can use it in a varied way the next day, which might not seem so leftovery. But for some families, just making enough to have it one meal and then again the next day works great. My husband will totally do that with like soups and stews and that type of thing. He just doesn't like when it dries out when it's in the freezer. So she walked away. So anyway, we have a bunch of kids here in the house. We've been doing a lot of cooking. So one of the things also that Nisha is going to go into more on in a video series she's doing, but with the kitchen, just always having something on hand for a quick meal, because it's so much, it's so much better for your family, even if it's boxed mac and cheese, than to run out to get something because it just
Yeah.
ends up costing so much more. So just those nights like, I can't cook. What can you have on hand that's just easy to throw in the oven and fill bellies?
Yeah, that is definitely for sure. Like, I can always make a meal or extend a meal. Like, I think that's part two where you were talking about hospitality is, like, if somebody was to come over your house and you were cooking a meal, I'm sure Sarah would probably just throw some stuff together. Like,
Just add more water to the soup.
yeah. So just having, like, that heart, and I think the Lord will just bless that as well. Let's see. So organization. What are some organization things that you wish you knew?
Not keeping stuff for a rainy day. I caught that from my dad, and it's hard because we all know that there's hard times in the world, and with everything that happened a couple of years ago that I won't mention, it was hard to sometimes find things that you needed. Yeah. But there's also I was thinking about this because I should have gone and thrown it away while I was thinking about it, but I went into my kitchen cupboard the other day and I have a baggie full of twist ties. I am never going to use that entire bag of twist ties before more come in the next box, but I have an entire baggie of them sitting there taking up space in my drawer. And really, I can get rid of it because I just have to move it around every time I get in the drawer when I really only need to keep, a small couple of them instead of the baggie.
Get rid of that stuff.
So yeah, just getting rid of the extras. And if you are saving it for a rainy day, putting it in a place where you don't have to handle it all the time.
Yeah.
Because like keeping it in my drawer is a bad place. If I did want to keep it, but I put it in a box with other similar things in the closet and I don't have to touch it, it's not a daily thing to deal with.
I agree. I agree with that a lot. I think that I keep a lot less, but also the things that are like in my direct day-to-day path, then I am less. So we keep a lot of fabric because we sew. So if I get good deals on fabric, I'm sure you guys have probably seen some videos where I've gotten good deals on fabric, but that's not going to be like right in my living room. That's going to be like in a tote and put away, and we will go like look for that when we're working on a project. Because if it was in my living room, then it would drive me crazy.
Also, getting things put away shortly after I get them. Because I have a tendency that I can take something home and put it on the kitchen counter, or put it on, we have a bed where we put all the clean laundry, which works out fine if I then actually fold it after a day or two. But if I don't, it just becomes this big pile and it becomes hard to deal with. So putting things back in their place or bringing something new into the house, making a place for it.
Yeah. I think the rule too, not like always necessarily like taking something out, but as you're putting new things in, making those decisions. I know like sometimes if I say I got bags of clothes for the kids or whatever, and first of all, when I get bags of clothes for kids, I have to go through it like right away. Like get in there, just be like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. And then like you can deal with like the yeses, but get that no bag out of there, because if not, then the kids are going to be trying on like Aunt Susie's old hat with a feather on the top, and then eventually that's going to end up being like...
And they're suddenly in love with it, and you can't get rid of it.
Yes.
On that note, another thing for organization that has really helped me is keeping a box or bag for donations. Because as kids grow out of something, or as something is handed to us, there was a fly.
Flies.
I didn't swallow it this time, though, so that's good.
I swallowed a fly yesterday.
And then I tried to today. I wanted to be like Nisha. So anyway, having a box. We keep a box on our back. Like we have a screen-in porch, and we keep a box on there. And I just throw things in as this isn't going to be, not like trash, but things that can actually be donated. But things that I don't have to look at again. I can take the whole box and just take it to Goodwill and say, here you go. But it definitely helps, because otherwise I just kind of keep it in the like I'll keep it in the boys' bin going, these don't really fit, but we're going to talk about clothes in a minute, but I should get rid of them. And then I never actually get rid of them. And again, I have to handle them all the time. Yeah. Where if I just take them and put them in the bag, they sit there, and then when I'm ready to go for donations, I just take it.
Yep. Oh. I have one for organization, and I don't think Sarah does this.
I don't.
No, you don't. Okay. So
okay, why I don't do this is because my husband has a bad memory, and I'd have to answer his questions about what was going on with this thing all day long. So.
Okay, so it is colors. Actually, you know what? I'll be back. Okay, I brought what I was doing. So all my kids have a color. And I did this for quite a few reasons. So like this plate right here is for a specific daughter who is 8 years old. She knows this is her color. And if she left her plate on the table, I would be like, hey, can you go get your plate? And I don't have to say, whose plate was left on the table? And everyone's like, not mine, not me. So everyone has a color coordinated plate. Now I do this with other things as well. In my bathroom, I am completely okay if children have the same towel for a couple weeks. So what we do is, I had issues as some of my kids got older. They didn't want to share a towel with somebody else because I would just like dry everyone off at once when they were all little. I just dry everyone off with the same towel. As they got older, they wanted like their own towel, but then like all those towels were on the floor, and that's a lot of laundry. I do enough laundry. So I started taking and making a hook on the top of my towels, and all I use is bias tape or ribbon, and I just make a hook like this and tie it to the corner of the towel, and then I have like clothes hooks in my bathroom that they hook over. So every child has the same color. So this child is going to have a yellow hook in the bathroom with their towel on it. And so then I do, whenever I'm doing towels, I'll do everyone's towels, hang them on the same hook, but they'll have the, they'll know what towel is theirs. But also if they leave their towel, say, on the bathroom floor, or who knows where they leave towels. Oh my goodness. But I'll know whose towel it is. They can't say, oh, that's not my towel. So this is what saved me a lot, was doing different colors. And I'm missing some plates here, but doing different colors. So that is one of my tips to organization.
That's a great tip.
If it works for your family. Actually, it actually helped my husband, where you said that it would be hard for your... My husband remembers the colors more than he did like somebody's cup or like initial or something.
See, my husband remembers numbers, so maybe if I numbered our plates.
Yeah, there you go.
Whatever works.
Whatever works, exactly. So, toys.
I just noticed he had something hanging on his lip. Okay. Toys. I think that you need less toys than most people think. Mm-hmm. For a family our size, so we had 8 children living in the house just a few months ago. Our daughter recently got married. And if she was 20, so she wasn't necessarily playing with toys. But just the idea of how much stuff each person needs, mm-hmm. like for their age group or however you want to say it, I think people think you need a lot more than you do. So what we have out for everyday play toys, we have a basket of Magna-Tiles, mm-hmm. which was given to us as a gift from my sister. I think they're actually Picasso tiles or something. Mm-hmm. My sister gave them one year to somebody as a present, and we have, on like flash sales and things like that, bought more pieces for it. And that is played with pretty much every day by all range of children. Our oldest in the house right now is 16, and she'll play and build things with the littles with that, no problem. And I have a basket of baby safe things, but they're not all necessarily toys. There was a whisk in there the other day. They're just random things that little ones can play with, and my bigger ones find things to do with, mm-hmm. even though they're not specifically a toy set or anything. Mm-hmm. And that's what stays out at our house all the time. Mm-hmm. I have some other toys that, like, we have a train, like a Thomas train, mm-hmm. put the pieces together, but that doesn't come out unless mommy brings it out. Does that make sense? So we don't have very many toys that are like out all the time, and it means that we have less things to pick up.
Yeah.
Also teaching kids to pick up after themselves. Yeah. Because it can be overwhelming for them to move from, when you have this many people, to move from one object, like one activity to the next, mm-hmm. and then they're all like moving activity to activity. So now instead of having 3 activities out, you have 21 activities out because each child has their own thing.
Yeah. I'm going to be sharing with you on a different video my actual like toy organization, but I agree with that. We have a lot less toys than you think that we would have, but a lot of things that we have duplicate sets of it. So we have like Legos, but we have enough Legos that would be like for enough kids to play, not just like, you know, a small little basket, like enough that like a bunch of kids could play. So we keep sets of things. I have 4 baskets that are about like this big, like 12 by 12 maybe. I have 8 baskets. Did I say 4?
It's okay.
I have 2 rows of 4, which would be 8. I have 8 baskets that are that size that the kids are allowed to choose from, and those are like the ones that we rotate. So every day we would switch out one, and we wouldn't take out any until like that one was cleaned up. kind of like you're saying. And one of those is like the Magnetiles or whatever. We like those. Another has like animals in it and like those types of things. So we would rotate through those, but it would be one would be out at a time.
Yeah. I also find it brings a whole new life to it if for like on a snowy day you're stuck inside and you're suddenly like, hey, let's take out the animals and the Magnetiles and let's make pens for them. And it makes a whole new activity for them. But because it's not always available, it's like this new cool fun thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. I have another, then I also have like other toys that are in like a bench that are bigger. And that would be on like a rainy day. This time of year, we rarely take those other toys out. And actually, like once fall gets really cool and it's like rainy fall nastiness, like sleetish, we might have a day that I'm like, hey, do you guys want to take the farm set out? And the kids are like, yes, farm! They're so excited because they haven't had it for so long. So just keeping that, I don't know, it's like new and fresh. And we don't really have toys in our rooms. The kids are allowed, my kids are allowed to have a small box that stays under their bed of like personal items, but I don't even know that they have a toy in there. I think it's more things like a letter that somebody gave them or stuff like that they would prefer to keep rather than like an actual toy.
Yeah, I don't think any of my kids have personal toys that I would say that's their toy, don't touch.
I think my girls each have a doll that they keep on their bed, but they usually share with each other, so it's really not an issue, but they like to keep their doll on their bed. So besides that, there's really no individual toys. Yeah. Okay, so clothing.
I don't keep a lot of clothing, and people probably think that I'm weird because I keep less than, like, I probably have less clothes for my 7 kids than most people have for 2 or 3 kids. But it helps me because you can't get super behind in laundry when you only have so many sets of clothes.
Yeah.
In a good way, because you just aren't doing laundry all the time, which is great. I mean, you are doing laundry all the time, but you're not doing like, I have to stay home to get laundry done today, if that makes sense. Yep. So it just is one of those that we do, hey baby, we do, one load a day, and that keeps us caught up. And then some days we'll have to do more than that. But if I get one load in the morning and then get it drying like right after breakfast, then if I don't do any more clothes that day, we still have clean clothes for the next day. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yeah. But not having, again, with how many times do I have to touch this thing? And it's in my way all the time. Each of my kids has a basket that's like this big. All my boys. 11 on down. So 4 boys. All of them.
I have girls, she has boys.
I do, I have boys. So the 4 boys, 11 on down, have a basket that's about this big that holds all of their clothes. My 13-year-old has now gotten too big that his don't fit in the basket anymore because he's 5'10" and a half and his jeans just don't fit in the basket.
She has really tall children too, but you can see like she's very tall. She's on a stool. Well, I guess I'm a little bit lower than you, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm kind of squatting. I mean, I'm stooping because I have a little baby.
She's very tall. Her husband's very tall. Her children are very tall.
So all the kids are very tall, but still, the amount of clothes we have fits in that basket. And even for my husband and I, we each have 2 of those baskets and our clothes fit in them. My girls, I have an 8-year-old girl. I know. I have an 8-year-old girl and 16-year-old girls. Theirs don't go in a basket because they have shelves in their room.
Yeah.
Okay. You tell your clothing bit and I'll be right back. Pass it on to child.
Okay, so my thing is, as far as clothing goes, I keep, for my younger kids, which are 11 and down, it's kind of funny, I thought it was kind of funny because she said that her younger kids were 11 and down. So my younger kids, I also would consider 11 and down, and I will be showing you this to you guys soon. I'm going to do some organization videos. I have 3 bins each they're the 12 by 12 baskets. And they each get 3 bins. So one would be for their underwear and pants that they wear underneath. The other one would be for outfits, and the other one would be for pajamas. So I usually keep, for younger kids, I keep about 5 outfits. And for older kids, they usually, unless they request more clothes, they usually only have like 3 outfits. And the way that works is they will have those outfits, but then like once they start to get dirty, I'll just like throw those away and then get something new, or I'll have backup new. But I just don't keep those in the immediate like where they're going in every day because it helps on my laundry. I'll take backup clothes and have those in totes, and I keep one in the downstairs closet and then the rest in the attic. But I do limit that as well. I don't keep like 50 outfits of the same size. I am blessed in a way because all my younger kids are all girls. So pretty much it's like if it's dirty, it's going in the trash, and if it's not, then we keep it because we have so many girls. But if I had like a big gap between boys and girls, then I wouldn't be keeping as much of those smaller kids' clothes. My older girls, they take care of their own laundry. They decide how much they can fit, but they each have like 2 dresser drawers. So they don't have a huge amount of space. And then we keep 3 to 5, we call them going out outfits. Most of the time there's 3 like rotational outfits that they're wearing, and then I keep usually 2 matching outfits. So if we're doing something, I like to keep especially like a red shirt, because if we're going someplace in public, to try to keep everyone together so everyone knows that everyone's together. It's mainly for, well, 2 reasons. One, if you're in a group, I don't like being cut off. And we started this with like Bobby because a lot of people would cut the part of the group where Bobby was off because he was in a wheelchair, and that was really difficult for our family. He would split us up as a family. Another thing is if a child got lost, or not saying that a child would get lost, you would know exactly what your child was wearing to that outing.
Yeah.
And you hate to think of those types of things, but I would know exactly what my child was wearing, their color shirt and their pants or whatever. Just for safety reasons. I've never lost a child, but I kind of think that in the back of my head, just safety wise.
Also, if you have children who, I don't have a child like this right now, but I have had children who are now more grown up, who would wander easily. Like, just get excited about the butterfly and follow it around and not even know, like, oh, the group went that way.
Yeah.
So just that idea of being able to keep eyes on people easier.
Yeah. And red's really easy to see. And a lot of people don't wear red as their main color. Now, blue is a color that lots of people wear, so I don't really put blue like for a family color. I did at one point do that, but if I'm trying to like see a child, I really want to have like red's my main color if we're going someplace. So that's basically clothing for us. So now 2, I guess maybe harder or harder type subjects. Those are more like practical things. I wanted to talk about marriage and parenting, so whatever one you want to do first.
Marriage. You
Marriage.
get married first.
Okay.
Usually. Well, I think going back to what I said at the start about making sure your husband is priority for you above your children. Because I know in the craziness of life, of babies and toddlers, they take a lot out of you. And then dealing with special needs, which both of us have done with a child with special needs. Sometimes you emotionally are so focused on that one child, for a good reason even sometimes, that you're neglecting being emotionally available to your husband or making that connection with your husband, because like just recently, in the last couple weeks, our son ended up in the ICU. And it was hard, and I was in the ICU with him, and I'm having to make decisions and everything, which sometimes felt like I had to make a decision by myself because Mark wasn't there. But I had to remember in the same way, he was having a hard time because he couldn't be with Josiah. So both of us were struggling with the same problem, but in different ways because we had different experiences with it. And just remembering that both of us kind of needed to grieve. I mean, he came out of the hospital and everything, but just what was going on at the moment, dealing with all our emotions and everything, knowing the other one, we were still on the same team, but the things we were saying to each other might sound hard, or like we were questioning somebody, because like he would ask me questions about what was happening, and I felt like I was giving him the information, but he didn't feel like he was getting him the information, where I felt I was just being drowned with information by the doctors. So I didn't really know what information to give, or thought I had given information. You know, it wasn't one of those that either one of us got mad at each other, but we just had to realize where the other person was so that we could connect in the right way, because we both saw it differently. So
Yeah.
that can be hard.
I think that, like accepting that you're different people and you're not going to think alike. And I think sometimes in marriage, like there's this whole fantasy like that people see on TV or whatever, that there's going to be love and there's going to be marriage and it's going to be great and you're going to fall in love and it's all going to be great, but like in reality that's not the truth. There's going to be hard times. There's going to be hard times like just in other things that are going on that can bring stress into the marriage, whether it's finances, whether it's, you know, health situations, whatever it is, can like bring in hard times. But I think the thing that has probably helped most now, it's a little different, I think, because myself and my husband were not Christians when we were married. And young ladies, I highly suggest that you listen to the Bible and do not marry somebody who is not a Christian. I tell my girls this all the time, because when you are married to a Christian, and since my husband has become a Christian, our focus is the same, right? And if you are married and you are a Christian and your husband is not a Christian, I always saw this like little sign, and it was like a triangle, kind of like this. And it had like husband, wife, and then God. And like if you guys are both working your way up the triangle, like if you're focused towards God, then you're going to bring each other closer together. Well, what happens when somebody's a Christian and somebody's not a Christian is if that one person is moving towards God and that person's other down here still, you're actually moving like further away from your husband in so many ways. And you're moving closer to the Lord in your walk, but then like that can anger and it can upset like a spouse who's not walking with you to the Lord. So I think number one would be to make sure that your marriage is focused on Christ, and that you're marrying like on a solid foundation, which is like our Lord, right? And so if that would be number one, is making sure that you are marrying a Christian. And something that is going to sound really weird, but if you put it in your mind that divorce isn't an option, like even if things get really tough, even if you guys are going to like sleep on the couch and sleep in the bedroom, but you're going to come back together and talk things out, or you know, somebody huffs off and walks towards the woods, or whatever happens, but if you know in the back of your mind like you have to get through this, like there's no option, like you're not like you can't just walk away, like even when things are really hard, you can't just like totally check out and totally walk away. Like that's the foundation, like, and it's a safety in knowing that even though if I get mad at my spouse and I yell at him and I do like sinful things like towards my husband, that I can go and I can ask the Lord first and my husband forgiveness and know that he's not going to walk away. And the same's like reciprocated with him, as if he does wrong things, that he'll have my forgiveness.
It's a baby coming back.
And I think that the perfect example of that is just the way that Christ forgave us, you know, like there wasn't any strings attached. Another thing with marriage is that what works for one marriage might not work for your marriage. So if you see something working well in somebody else's marriage, you can try to implement it in your marriage, but it might not work for your marriage. I know I really enjoy talking to Sarah because we both have husbands with different disabilities, and we might at times take on not leadership roles. I don't. What would
It's
that
hard
be?
to. It's hard to say. Sometimes decisions that have to be made need to be made by us. Like,
yeah.
we're not trying to usurp our husband's authority, but both of them understand that sometimes a decision has to be made in a moment's notice
Yeah.
that they have a hard time making.
Yeah. And it's not something that you're going like above and beyond your husband. It's something that like they maybe can't, like for me and my husband, maybe my husband, it's too much for him to make that decision. And then I make that decision and ask, hey, would this be a good decision? And he would be like, yes, that would be a good decision.
Yeah.
So not really like I'm making decisions over here, but rather like, I know that you can't handle this. This is kind of what I was thinking. Is this okay with you?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
how we make decisions at our house too. Not every decision, and I, in a way, both Mark and I feel it would be better. This was kind of one of my other things for marriage, is helping your husband to lead, because we both have a unique situation where our husband can't always lead in the way that they want to. But both of them recognize that biblically functioning homes, the husband is the leader of the household. So it's like hard and something that we all have to work through. And actually, we went to see someone recently and they said to Mark, like most people don't want to talk about Mark's disability, but this person, we hadn't seen them in a while, and this person said to Mark, how does your disability affect your ability to lead the home? And that's something most people don't even think about, how it's a difficulty in our marriage, because as a wife, I wish I could just submit. Okay, you made the decision, let's just go with it, but I can't.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things, like, in our beginning of marriage, I kind of took a step back because I became a Christian before my husband, and I wanted to be a submissive wife. So I took a step back, waiting for my husband to do something, but he didn't even, like, realize that he needed to do that. And then once he realized that, he didn't have the ability to be able to, like, think the A, B, C, D out. So if I can, and I'm still learning, like, we have to learn together with each thing, but I'm still learning that if I maybe give options or write out steps, or, you know, maybe he likes if I write things down. So if I write down like a reminder of something that he wants to do, then he'll have that written down. And it's not that he's ignoring whatever, but it's like what works best for him, right?
Someone isn't really ready to be up from nap time.
Okay, bit crazy. That's our lives.
So I had one more thing about the marriage.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to step
Go
out.
for marriage.
But just the idea about the leadership. If you have a husband who can lead, which my husband could when we first started our marriage, be willing to take a step back and know that his decision, even if it doesn't ultimately look right in your eyes, he is responsible for those decisions before God, and God will protect you and use your finger. We are finger painting with chocolate chips on me. But like there were things that Mark, we've talked about this with people, but there were decisions Mark made that I would talk to him and say, you know, does that make sense for us right now? Can we afford that? That type of thing. Mark would ultimately make the decision, and later he found out that decision wasn't the right one to make. But ultimately God took us through that timing, and it was fine.
Yeah.
And then if you come to a point where either at the start of the marriage or somewhere through the marriage, your husband can't take that leadership role, do whatever you can to encourage him in his ability to lead. I was talking to a mom the other day and trying to give her suggestions of a husband who doesn't really know where to go in leading his family in Bible and things like that. And, you know, saying, I was thinking of studying this part or this part of Bible. Which do you think would be more encouraging for the kids? The kids and I talked about this. Can you help us enforce this lesson on not lying or whatever?
Yeah.
Not taking him totally out of the picture, but helping him to maybe giving him options to help make the decision if he can't just make the full decision.
Yeah.
But making opportunities for him to lead.
Yeah.
Because the more chances he gets to lead, the more he's going to want to lead.
Yes.
Which is where he's supposed to be.
Yeah, and I really have found that actually over the past 2 years or so. And Sarah's actually helped me quite a bit because I had a lot of biblical counselors that would say, or I guess they would be counseling, you know, saying that I need to just step back and let him lead or whatever. But I think that just having, it would be great if we were able to have the relationship like that, but I think it's really important, like she said, it works so much better in our household to give two decisions, right? So like when we were going to decide for our next book that we were going to read in our family Bible time, what we were going to be going over, it's kind of like, hey, I saw these two things, and which one do you think that we should go over next? And even if I wanted this one and he said this one, it's this one. Like, that's his decision. Like, I want him to have that.
And to be careful as a wife to not be like, well, yes, but...
Yeah. Yes.
It's easy to do that.
I was thinking I really wanted that one.
Also something that I guess... I've been talking to a lot of people about marriage recently. I didn't realize this. So, someone I was talking to marriage about, totally different person. We were talking about having a relationship with our husband when we say we love him through the good and the bad, through sickness and in health. Would you really love that person and be willing to put out for that person? Because in our relationship, I have had to take care of Mark. at times, more than I ever thought I would. And he's had to take care of me more at times. I broke my arm while I was pregnant with Abigail, and I could not move for over a week without excruciating pain. And so someone had to help me be able to stand up from the toilet, because how our house was made, I didn't have a way to pull myself up. I got your chocolate. And so just, we had said this to a friend in the past.
The baby wipe.
Can you give me a baby wipe for my chocolate? I guess I had said this to a friend before she got married, and she said, yes, I would be willing to do that for this guy. And she ended up marrying him. And we had them over, and they were wonderful. But just that idea, like when you walk into marriage, the marriage itself, especially if you both are able to live long lives, is going to look very different 20 years from now than it looks the day you get married.
Yeah.
And so are you willing to be past that infatuation stage of,
Yeah.
oh, you're so nice to me and you love me and we make good money and we have all the time in the
You're
world to
gonna
do what
say
we
make
want.
cute babies.
We do. We make cute babies. We do that too. So yeah, sorry, that was my end on marriage.
All right, talking about babies, what about parenting?
I wish I wasn't so uptight when my babies
Me
were
too.
babies. I enjoy this guy so much more. So this is Gideon. He's about to be 2. And I enjoy him so much more than I enjoyed my first baby. Because I was so worried, like, oh no, she sneezed. Do we have to go to the hospital? Do I do this? You know, just, oh, like, we didn't do pacifiers. But that idea of like, oh, she dropped the pacifier. What do I do?
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, the toast fell on the floor, but it was butter side up. Go ahead.
Right? Yeah, I think the same. I think that I enjoy, and it's funny because I keep seeing moms saying, as soon as I'm 40, like, I don't want any more kids because I'll be too old and whatever. And I think, like, these are the best years. They truly are. Like, for me, they're the best years. It's like, I'm 40. I have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I also have a 26-year-old who's married, and I have older girls. And it's just a beautiful time to be able to enjoy those younger years. I think I was always worried, like, oh no, I have to, like, clean the house just so, or I was more worried about, like, getting the dishes done than I was, like, taking that moment just to, like, snuggle my baby. And I still have moments of that, but I don't feel like, I used to feel very anxious inside a lot of times, and I don't feel very anxious. And I also feel like, I used to try to compare, like, the way that I parent, the way that I homeschool to every book and every person and everything. And it's like, you know what? This is my story. God created me the way that I am, and my husband the way that he is, and each of these children individually. And my job is to, like, glorify him in what I'm doing and the way I'm raising my children, and not to worry about, like, what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I can enjoy the baby, because when you're in the first baby, maybe even the second baby, those days seem so long, and everyone tells you it goes by so quickly, and you're like, no, it's so long. But then, our 20-year-old daughter just left being married, and we were super close with her, and it's really hard to see her go, but it makes me realize how fast the time really did go, and how many things I still feel like we didn't do with her, and we were, you know, that I wanted to share with her. And I mean, I feel like I did a lot with her and all of that, but still, it just makes me think, like, these snuggles are only going to last so long, and you never know when that last is going to be. You never know. I'm not trying to say that, like, in a morbid way, because I'm not even saying, like, if a child dies. I'm saying, like, you never know when that last time the toddler's going to want to climb up in your lap.
Yeah.
Because one day it's just not there anymore, and you realize it's not there. Like, that could have been the last time he's going to climb off my lap. Willingly, not wanting to come back.
It was the last time you wanted to nurse.
But just that idea, you don't know until it's not there.
Yeah.
And with my first, I did a lot of trying to hurry her to walk, hurry her to talk, hurry her to get done nursing. And now it's like, no, keep nursing. That's fine. You know, it's okay that you, like, I'm not saying let a child be childish in a way that, like, they need to grow up. Like, at some point you can't still be cutting up your 10-year-old's food. I'm not saying that. I'm saying just
Enjoy
allowing
the
them
moment,
to
like they're
enjoy
in.
their childhood, and you enjoy that excitement in their eyes over something as simple as white bread.
Yes, exactly.
I fed my children white bread today.
It was funny because one of her sons, he's like, white bread. He's telling everyone. He's like walking around the kitchen. He's like, we're having white bread. Like, it was so exciting.
His eyes were like sparkling.
Yes, he
And
was excited for
Just
white
if
bread.
we could see the world like that. Like, look at that butterfly.
I know.
Uriah found a praying mantis the other day.
Did
and
he?
he spent over an hour just like watching the praying mantis, like laying down on the ground and watching. And like, I'm like, no, we have dishes to do. We have laundry to do. We have this. And just exploring through a child's eyes is amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that also just realizing like your children's individual needs and their individual desires and trying to, I want to say host them. It's not the right word. What am I looking for? Oh my goodness.
Accommodate them?
Yeah, like just accommodate them and to show them like if they're interested in whatever. And I think part of like child-led or unschooling or whatever, Sarah does hers a little different. I do mine a little different, but I think we both just want to like give our children the best of what's best for them specifically.
Yeah, like seeing what they're going to grow into. Because
Yeah.
God has created a person, an adult for them to be,
Yes.
not a person for us to mold them into.
Yes. Yes. So teaching and training them in the ways that they will go like biblically sound, teaching them things that you know, your skills, your things like that, but also being like, hey, you want to try that? Okay, let's see how you can try that, you know, and letting them be their own person.
Yeah.
So,
I think also another hard part of parenting, but is very needed, is seeing the whys behind your child's behavior.
ooh, I actually wrote that down. Were you
Did
reading
you? No,
my
I didn't.
notes?
I didn't read that note. I had seen your notes earlier about like colors, but I didn't read your like sentences.
I did. I wrote that down somewhere. Okay, go ahead. Say
But
it.
just seeing why are they doing this? Because there is a difference between a child. So I was listening to a podcast the other day. I like to listen to podcasts, and this mom was talking about when is it okay to, that was my husband. When is it okay to correct your children and when is it not? Like what times do you not correct your children? And she was telling a story of when she told her kids not to get in the water. And then one of her children did get in the water. But what happened was he was trying to save his little sister's toy and ended up accidentally getting in the water. But
Yep.
she didn't give him time to say that. And so was your child doing it to be disobedient? I wanted to go in the water. Mom said no, and I don't really care. Or was your child doing it because they love their sister and they wanted what was best for her? Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Like just that idea. Because there are times that my children, I'm not saying lying is ever right. But there are times where you can see their little brain working of, I don't want to do this against this person, but I need to tell the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So really helping them talk through those emotions, because it can be hard as adults to go through those
There it is.
emotions. Like, don't I have a cute baby? Every baby's cute. But just that idea of like how to work through the sinful desires that we have, being born in sin, wanting to, like, living in that old man, like living with that old man still there, of we still have that tendency to think, oh, well, lying would get me out of this situation. Helping your children talk through that so
Yeah.
that they can go into the future with more tools in their toolbox of why they're doing it.
Don't worry, we're all working on this. Okay. So actually, I wrote like the same thing. So this says, see the heart behind what your child is doing. Are they curious or deliberately disobeying? That's what I wrote down. Because it's a lot of times, like, I think when I was younger, I'd be like, oh, they're doing that, and I asked them not to do it. But then I was thinking, okay, well, why were they doing that? Were they just curious on what was going to happen? Okay, we're back. I ran out of card or whatever, but now the kids are outside. The last thing that I wanted to say for parenting was to make your yes mean yes and your no mean no.
Yes, definitely. Make sure that the kids understand what the rules are and what you're doing, because a lot of time you're correcting kids for things you haven't actually told them to do or not to do. Like if I've never told the kid not to jump on the bed, I can't really spank them for jumping on the bed or yell at them or whatever you do for
Yep.
correction, because they don't actually know that that's a rule. And then once you've made it a rule, make sure that you follow through, because
Enforce
kids
it.
like boundaries. So
They do.
They don't necessarily know that they like boundaries, but kids actually feel safer and will explore their world more if they have boundaries.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Definitely. All right.
So-
I hope you guys have a blessed day.
Bye.
See you later.